TV. A little bit different, mix it up today. It's the bye week. We're shifting some things around. So we decided to do it from the house. That's how this is going to work. And you know what? Still the same quality. Same quality show. Redemption Thursday's Redemption Thursday. I've got the wagers ready to go. And some fun games this week. I'm actually really looking forward to it in the bye. Also, to note, in today's show, we'll talk to Link Jarrett. Looking forward to that as well. It's hard to kind of wrap your mind around that he's been here for about 6 months. Changes are taking place over at Hauser. Opportunity to talk about that transition. I'm sure made easier by the fact that he was able to bring his whole staff in. But I think there will be a special buzz in the air for Florida State baseball this year. Maybe not for an exhibition, but I think in terms of the season, which, of course, the schedule came out yesterday, not that far off. It is something to start wrapping your mind around, as is basketball for that matter. Got asked a couple questions yesterday during the show about basketball and what we're expecting, that kind of a season. So these are all things you tackle during the bye week, certainly a lot of fun to do that. But circling back to football is what we're doing right now. And I mentioned that the Redemption Thursdays, they are ready. So let's get to them. I'm already pumped about this because I think that we're back on track here with the college games. I think we're all right. We're moving in a good direction here. A little up and down for most of the season. Oddly enough, my NFL moneyline wagers have been doing me right. Here are the picks for the day. UAB moneyline versus Western Kentucky. Obviously, I think UAB will win the game outright. If you are actually a bettor, you would look this up to see what kind of plus odds you're getting by taking moneyline as opposed to the paltry points you're getting in this one. At some point, this Iowa number has to be too big, right? Earlier in the week, it was 27.5 against Ohio State. I thought, Ohio State could win that by 28. It got all the way up to 30.5 this morning, and I thought, no, Tom, I listen, 30.5, I may wait till actual game day to see if this gets up to 31.5, which is a more pivotal number. But Iowa's defense is one of the best defenses in all of the Big Ten, if not the best defense in the Big Ten. Now, Iowa's offense, conversely, is horrific. But if they keep them out of the end zone on a few of those trips and Ohio State's just looking to get out of Dodge, Iowa really, you got to score 14 points here, Iowa, to cover that number? I'm going for it. That's the reasoning behind it. Kansas and Leipold never fail me, at least in terms of no matter who's playing quarterback for them or what guys they have out, they score points. And I know they got rocked by Oklahoma, 52 points they gave up last week, but they scored 42 with their backup quarterback. So the transition for Kansas to be able to keep scoring seems to be in place. Baylor has been a disappointment. There's no other way to say it. Their defense is not what people thought they would be. People were in love with Dave Aranda a year ago. He was one of the guys, along with Tucker at Michigan State, that everybody would come on in the chat and talk about how quickly they turn things around. Yeah, well, Baylor stinks and Michigan State stinks. I'll take Kansas getting the points there, 9.5. Purdue getting points against Wisconsin. This is about a matchup. Purdue's defensive line is good. They gave up a ton of yards via the pass last week against Nebraska. They beat Nebraska. They couldn't stop Trey Palmer, the transfer from LSU. Burned him for, get this, I don't know if you know this, Tom. The kid for Nebraska, Trey Palmer, the transfer from LSU, had 297 yards by himself last week against Purdue. 297. He had a 60-yard reverse and a 237 yards receiving on 7 receptions. That is insane. And they still lost. Nebraska still lost to Purdue despite that. Purdue can stop the run, though. And all Wisconsin wants to do is run. So this feels like a matchup issue. Give me Purdue plus 2.5. Tulane minus 6.5. Tulane's a pretty good team. I think Memphis is on the verge of quitting. Penn State minus 4 against Minnesota. Minnesota's got injury issues. I hate their offense. We'll see if Penn State can bounce back. I'll lay the 4. South Carolina getting 3 against Texas A&M. I just don't believe in Texas A&M. I don't. I think they've got athletes, but they've had guys, key injuries, especially at receiver. Their offense is so ugly going on the road. I just don't see them putting up a lot of points. I'll take South Carolina home getting points. Boise State, I think, wins the game outright against Air Force so long as they don't get down early. This is an offense that I think can run the ball on Air Force. You can. UCF. Hey, listen, UCF's an interesting team for me. I had UCF at the beginning of the year to be underwhelming. I won some money the other way against UCF. Not a big Gus Malzahn guy, but I do study trends, and UCF is trending in the right direction. Whatever they figured out in play calling has turned their season around. They're scoring points in bunches. They look like a much more efficient team. I like them. I'll lay the 5 here. I've kind of come full circle on that team, or at least on a 180. TCU -3 against Kansas State. I know a lot of people like this Kansas State defense, and for good reason, but TCU scores on everybody. I don't know. I just don't think Kansas State has the offense to hang with TCU. I'll lay the 3. And there they are. There they are, brought to you by our friends at Metro Deli. I don't see why not. Those are the 10. And I would also know, even when we do the show from the hizzy, we get the graphic with the money. I like it. Fun games. I think the card this week, Tom, I think I may have, this may be the biggest card this week. Those are the 10 I'm putting on the show, but I think I've got upwards of 25 bets to go this weekend. 25.
25. Oh my goodness.
So I'm in a lot of pools, as you might suspect. But I'm in a bunch of pools where it's like some of them are nominal amounts of money, some of them are big, some of them are no money, whatever. But when you're in that many pools, the point would be this: you have to look at the card a lot, right? You're like, oh, I got this one. Then I've got this other pool. One of the pools you're in. So then I was like, I got to do that. And then I got to do that. And then I'm in this other thing, this chips game that I play with a buddy of mine. And we do all these different, where you have poker chips at the start of the year. You can lay on each game. You've done that, right?
I can't believe I didn't sign up for it this year. It sounds like a lot of fun, and I'm an idiot.
It's awesome.
Yeah, I know.
So I'm in a chips game. And so all these things are cool. But I end up having to study the card because some of the cards are different depending on the pools you're in, right? They don't do every game. But over the course of being in 4 or 5 pools, you end up looking at every game. And this weekend, more than any other, and it just coincides with the bye, which I think is exciting for me because I can watch all day. As I was going through it, at one point I was like, I think I could bet 30 games this weekend. And this is not the byproduct of being a compulsive gambler or anything like that. I'm really not. There are weekends where I'll bet 2 games or none. There are weekends where I'll bet 17 games, whatever. It just depends on what jumps off the card. I think I had like 30 plus games this weekend where I went, I see a side, I see an angle here. Some of those are first half totals. Some of those are, team totals. Some of those, so they're not all sides, but some of them are first quarter totals, things like that.
Sounds like you and I need to do a lot more talking before Saturday. That's off the air, because I love a good bye week, and if you've got that much action, my God, we need to go watch many screens in one.
Yeah, well, you and I could get together. We could always swing by a place like the CP or something, and we can sit back and go, okay, I need this on the Tulane game. I need this one on, people are like, what are we watching over here, Jeff?
Well, we got pull there. They'll give us the remote. So, yeah, I think you can pull that off.
Yeah, I do like the cards this week. And I do love that it falls on a bye week where we can take it all in and really watch a lot of football. I actually, oddly, I know this is a weird thing to say out loud, but I will be watching intently tonight. Georgia Tech, there was a good article Andy Staples wrote in The Athletic for people to read about what Georgia Tech did to get their season turned around. And some of the things that really they focused on details and stuff like that. Some of it's banal. But I would say that, obviously that if you're going to go 4-1 or 5-0 over your next 5, it's got to start with a home game coming out of a bye week against Georgia Tech. I mean, you're going to have to win that game. That can't be a game that you stumble on, or else we're starting to talk about a real disconcerting trend. But I think if you want to know more about that team, you can watch them tonight, first of all, against Virginia, which is not a great game, but it's more about opponent study.
So is that a seed of doubt that I hear based upon an article? Are you a little more worried about Georgia Tech because of what you read?
I'm not. I think that they did a good job of simplifying what they do, but their offensive line is still a major problem. And if you're getting Fabian Lovett back and your defensive line is getting healthier and you're at home coming off of a bye, I feel like that should be something you could overcome. Just because Georgia Tech got back to the basics, they removed some toxicity from the coaching staff, and they were able to kind of simplify their game plan and focus on the fundamentals. Well, that's what every team, every program that's in trouble has to do. I this. I cover Nebraska for On3, and I do a once-a-week show with those great hosts on Husker Online. Well, their defense was giving up gobs of yards per game. It was insane. And we were talking with them about, well, what can you do? What can Billy Bush, their defensive coordinator, do during the bye week? And they're like us because they played that early game. They get 2 bye weeks. So they were talking about, well, you just got to simplify things. You got to let these kids know what they're looking at, give them 1 key instead of 3, and just get back to basics. And I thought to myself, we've been here for that. We've watched Florida State have to do that. We've talked about that. After that 0-4 start a year ago, we were like, okay, stop rotating so many guys in. Let's everybody find out what our fundamental roles are. And now that makes you very basic, but at least you know what you're doing. And, it's better to have guys play fast because they know where they're supposed to be and what they're doing than it is guys thinking their way through a play. And I think that every team in transition tries to do that. It doesn't make me fear them, but it does simplify things, and so they can play downhill. And against lesser teams, it works. But if you're a good football team, you can attack them a lot of different ways and leave them, in bad shape. And if you flip sides of it, offensively, I still don't think that's an elite team, and they have had a real hard time blocking. So I think Florida State will still be in good shape there, and that has to be a win. That just has to be a win. If it's not, we're fundamentally altering the questions about this staff and the kind of season we're having.
It's just, again, this is going to be my refrain. Sorry, folks, until about the end of the pregame show next Saturday afternoon morning from Hotel Indigo is, in 2015, Georgia Tech's one ACC win was Florida State.
Sure.
And then if the weather delay doesn't happen in Mike Norvell's debut, you probably win that game and win it fairly comfortably. Maybe, maybe not. But the weather delay certainly stopped any kind of forward momentum FSU had. They had a ton of it. And that team should never have lost to that Georgia Tech team. So they always seem to be in the middle of problems for us. And I think one of the great things about the challenge at hand with that particular matchup, not on paper, but the time and the situation. It's a noon kick. We're coming off of 3 straight losses, off a bye week. We'll see what kind of atmosphere and reception everybody gets as they come out of the tunnel. This is an easy team to love, but I'm talking about attendance. What is Doak going to look like for that game? Is it 65,000, 58,000? Is it a sellout? We'll find out, but the noon kick is a better challenge of Florida State's mindset, their commitment. It's going to tell us more. If it was a night kick, I feel like no matter what happened in the lead up through the bye week and the week of practice for Georgia Tech, the night kick would carry Florida State to a place where it would be like Boston College. Look at this atmosphere. They're going to be ready to go. You're going to see how hard they worked because the noon kickoff has a way of creating transparency about how involved are you? Are you thinking about the Miami game or are you thinking about today? So we'll find out pretty shortly, though.
Yeah, and I think there are instances throughout a season where you don't get as intensely focused or locked in as you'd like for a particular game. And a lot of times setting has a lot to do with that. As you've noted, if you're in a Mickey Mouse atmosphere like at Duke or maybe even Wake Forest or places like that. Now, Wake ought to have your undivided attention most days these days because their on the field play is so good. But, you have to provide your own energy. You would like to think you don't have to provide your own energy for a home game. But I got to be honest with you, I suspect that the numbers won't be good for attendance for that game. I could be wrong. Maybe the bye week will engender some thirst to see Florida State football again and, all that. And the weather's nice right now, so maybe that transition helps too. But I don't know. Georgia Tech's not an opponent that people get excited about these days.
They don't exactly come down by the busload from Atlanta either.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's hard to imagine that that's going to be anywhere near 70,000. I would suspect 55,000, Tom. It's just throwing out guesses here. I'm having a hard time believing that's going to be a great atmosphere. Shouldn't matter. Go execute. Go win the football game. And, in a weird way, and I think I'm more malleable in terms of the way I view success than I used to be when it comes to a week-to-week proposition regarding young men playing football, right? I don't need you. If you're a national championship caliber team, if you're Ohio State, you're Georgia or somebody like that, a lot of times I suspect I want to see against an overmatched opponent a lopsided score. But when you're not that team, when you don't have bigger, stronger, faster at every position, the way some of those teams do and the way we used to be, look, man, I get it. You might win a game 23-13 and not look great, and it could be a bit of a slog. And I won't hold it against you, but you got to win it. That's the point. The point is you got to win it. And I don't need Florida State. It'd be great, but I don't need Florida State to go out and beat Georgia Tech 41-10. It'd be awesome. It'd be a great signal of things to come. It would be a good sign of how serious and focused they were and all those things we would talk about. But I do need them to execute well enough, to play well enough, to not be in a position where come that fourth quarter, everything shifts back on the home team that's favored. All of that pressure we talk about, what these 5 games mean, what your record is in those 5 games, overcoming and shaking off the 3 straight losses, like all of it would come to bear at that moment that you enter the fourth quarter tied at 17. You would feel the tension in the stands, on the sidelines. With it, you will see it in Mike's demeanor. It will all be revealed if that happens. That's big if. We're speculating way off in the future here. I just need them to play well enough to execute a win and move on to the next.
Yeah, on the positive side, I'm just really excited to go watch this offense work because they've got choices that the likes of which they haven't had in quite some time here at this program. Because, again, it feels like a watershed moment to be able to run on Clemson the way they ran on Clemson. Unfortunately, if they can't in the future, we're going to say, what the hell? You could do it to Clemson. Why the hell couldn't you run on Miami? Why the hell couldn't you run on Syracuse at the same clip? And I get that other schemes might create more problems or bodies committed to the line of scrimmage, but now I have a defined expectation that if they show up ready to go, which I think they're going to against Georgia Tech, they should be able to run for big yardage. They should be able to run explosive plays and then also just sustain plays. And if they don't, that's going to be a little interesting. I think if the game is close next week, it's going to be because it's higher scoring, not because it's 13-all or 17-all. It's going to be because Georgia Tech, led by a quarterback who can make some magic on his own, finds a way to 27 after 3 quarters or 24 after 3 quarters.
Yeah, I think you're right on that. Yeah. Well, because it speaks to the other thing that we all seem to agree on right now, which is that we trust the defense less than we trust the offense. So, I think that that's true. I think that you could see a scenario by which all of a sudden you have to win 38-28 or something like that.
Yeah, against that kind of a quarterback, I trust the defense less. But Fabian Lovett trending in the right direction helps mitigate an awful lot of my worries on first and second down, meaning that if Jeff Sims were to scramble on third down and gain 6 yards, we might get off the field with Fabian Lovett in the game, meaning that they'll be in third and long. But the concern would be if he isn't able to go and something happens with his ramp-up process into the next game that we play, then I feel like there's going to be 3rd and 3s. And 3rd and 3, when you've got a quarterback who can run like that, it's not indefensible, but it's actually not a great provision. If you've got a pocket passer in that situation, you feel about 50-50 on it. But if you've got a guy who can run like Sims can, 3rd and 3 feels like an uphill battle. So hopefully Fabian's back because that will also make everybody around him look better, linebackers and secondary included.
Yeah, I'm so eager to see what this defensive line looks like with him back. It's almost like you forget because you did see it against LSU for much of that game. And you saw after basically the first series and a half, when Fabian got tested, because early LSU had some success running. And I remember Fabian, it's almost like he had to flip a switch.
Yep.
And he realized it was time to play some big boy football. And there's one moment in particular you can go back and watch where he absolutely sheds a blocker, throws him on his ass, and stuffs a run in the hole. It's a 2-yard gain. But it's like he had this, oh, no, we're not doing this out here today moment.
Yeah.
And it was interesting, like, oh, yeah, games are different. This is not practice. It's time to lock it in here. Games are different. And then he gets robbed of being able to go with the flow of a season and do that several more times. So how quickly can he get back into that mindset and flip the switch and dominate?
Yeah, there was a play. They've got goal to go, and there's a double team on Fabian. And In the beginning, he gets pushed back.
Yes.
And he responds, and he basically throws the rear end of the offensive lineman into the running back, and the running back gets bounced off. It looks like almost like a butt fumble type play, and it's hidden because, in a moment where they're 4 or 5 yards away from pay dirt, you're thinking, oh, great, well, it's 3rd and goal. You're not thinking about the majesty of a play like
Right.
Fabian Lovett just made. If it was 1st and 10 from their own 25, you'd feel very differently about that play than 2nd and goal from the 4 or something like that. And that's, again, he can make that kind of a difference to where, I mean, again, it's very basic, but if Fabian Lovett plays 40 snaps in that game against Georgia Tech, you just got a lot better at the second level because you're not asking a Jared Jackson to play 50 snaps. You're asking him to play 25 or 30. Joshua Farmer doesn't have to play all the snaps.
Yeah, it's true for all your secondary players. I don't mean those in the secondary. I mean your second string, third string guy, your third option. All those rotations become more effective because they're not being asked to make that many more plays than they're accustomed to.
And I can tell you that it's the maddening thing about Jared Jackson. He makes some plays that I don't even think Fabian can make, but it's the consistency factor. At Tuesday in practice, again, he does this every once in a while. You go, where is that consistently? He ragdolls one of our starting guards, grabs him, chucks him to the ground, and fills the run gap and is just waiting on the play. And you go, oh, my God.
Yeah. I need to see more of that.
Right. And you just don't if he's out there for 65 plays. But if he's out there for 25, you might. You might very well.
Jeff Cameron Show 93.3 Real Talk Radio and Warchant TV. If you're in the chat today, guys, we can't respond to you. Again, transparency. This is recorded this afternoon away from the station. I'm at my house. Tom's at his. Just a bye week, we had an opportunity to take a little downtime. Still wanted to provide content, but we can't respond to you in the chat. We apologize. Doesn't mean you can't chat. Just means we can't respond. Jeff Cameron Show 93.3 Real Talk Radio, Warchant TV. Hey, no fans, our partner ISF Inc. is a national management and IT consulting firm located right here in Tallahassee, Florida, solving the future for state governments through strategy, process, and technology. As a trusted advisor for state governments, ISF knows the importance of defining a clear and detailed strategy. Our friends at ISF can help your organization create a strategy that sets you on a path to success. ISF, your vision plus our expertise brings your brilliant ideas to life. Visit ISF.com to learn more. ISF, solving the future. Imagine for a moment that you are completely weightless with zero gravity. All of your worries and stress melt away. Your mind stops racing and you fall into a profound state of pure relaxation. This is available to you right now at Tallulah Delta 8 Plus Floating in Railroad Square for just $50. These state-of-the-art floating pods are unlike anything else you've ever experienced. And while you're there, you can shop for some of the latest and greatest CBD and Delta 8 products on the market. Natural pain management, stress relief, and better sleep are all at your fingertips at Tallulah. Tell them Jeff Cameron sent you and thank me later.
T-Spark Enterprises, roofing and construction services. T-Spark Construction.com. We conquer all peaks. We fix those darn leaks. Call 850-766-1340. T-Spark Enterprises, roofing and construction services. T-Spark Construction.com.
License number CCC 1331204.
For many in the workforce, their goal is to climb the company ladder. Often the climb requires a move to another city, and that's especially true in our industry. I'm Jay of Paul's Termite and Pest Control. If you rise the ranks of our competitors, there's a good chance moving up means moving away. Why? Because they're not local companies. They're from places like Orlando, Atlanta, Salt Lake City, and even Europe. That's certainly not the case with our employees. We're a company that was founded in the Big Bend and remains locally owned. When Paul's Termite and Pest Control employees advance, they remain in the Tallahassee area. Don't trust the safety of your family and pets from disease-carrying pests or the structure of your biggest investment from termites to people who may be here today and gone tomorrow. Trust Paul's Termite and Pest Control, a company that has serviced thousands of our neighbors right here for over 50 years. Being local really does matter in our industry because local problems require local solutions. Paul's Termite and Pest Control are the Big Bend's local experts for the elimination of termites or any other pest, and a greener lawn too. Call Paul's. We'll get them all.
It's been a while since I gave myself a real chance to meet someone new.
Susan and John are two kindred spirits who rediscovered the romance they deserve on Silver Singles, the secure dating site for singles over 50.
John is a massive foodie like me. It's been amazing to experience some of my favorite things again with someone who makes my heart beat faster. I'm so glad I got back out there.
Sign up today at silversingles.com/date. That's silversingles.com/date.
If you want to pay off high-interest debt faster, it's time to refinance with American Financing, America's home for home loans. Get a free mortgage review and learn about custom loans that can save you up to $1,000 a month. If you start soon, you may close in as fast as 10 days. Call 866-886-2026. That's 866-886-2026. Or visit AmericanFinancing.net. NMLS 182334, NMLSConsumerAccess.org.
We all want more energy, more strength, more results. Well, welcome to Orange Theory Fitness as you take a step towards feeling more alive today. Backed by science, Orange Theory's heart rate monitored workout is scientifically designed to keep heart rates in a target zone, spiking metabolism and increasing energy. Orange Theory Fitness is a one-of-a-kind group personal training workout resulting in more energy, visible toning, and extra calorie burn for up to 36 hours. Experience a more vibrant life today with Orange Theory Fitness. To find out more, go to orangetheoryfitness.com. Going to solve for the future a little early today. Normally we do our ISF Solving for the Future segment in hour number 2. We're doing it in hour number 1 today. Have the interview with Link Jarrett set for hour number 2 today. So just had to flip-flop a little bit there. We love our partners at ISF, and we love this collaborative effort that we've had. Today's will also be different in that a lot of times we reach out to you on the chat and ask you to kind of weigh in on the question at hand. Before we get to that, let me just remind everybody that ISF is an IT strategy firm. They've done this work for 40 years, and they've served state government and business clients across the nation. They're experts in government processes. They've worked with in-government agencies across the country, even though they're located right here in Tallahassee. And they have been unmatched in their expertise in developing strategies, evaluating and refining the process, and implementing technological solutions that are realistic and forward-thinking, and they do so in a collaborative manner. They know you want to do amazing things, and you have big visions and big goals, and you want those things to be able to happen, to be realized, and ISF will help you get there. Tom, I think when we look at this in terms of solving for the future, if we bring it back home to Florida State and try to solve for that, we're on the right path right now in a lot of areas. Florida State has been, no matter who they play this year, very competitive, in a position to win all of their games. That's a good sign that we're moving in the right direction. That is tangible evidence that the team now is competitive, even against the best of teams in this conference at the very least. And, of course, they did get the win over LSU. So you know that. But in order to sustain that, you brought something up on the show yesterday, and I've thought about this a lot even earlier in the year. I've had this discussion a lot with some people off the air, and the thought about, and Corey brought it up on Headlines, so it's been on the mind of a lot of people, and that is, where are you at if Jordan Travis doesn't play next year at quarterback? Where are you at if Fabian takes it to the NFL on the defensive line and Jared Verse chooses to do the same? Where are you at if you lose 4 or 5 key contributors? Say Johnny Wilson gets a great grade from the NFL and surprises you, even though he doesn't have a ton of reps, and says, you know what, I'm projected to go first 2 rounds because of my height and athleticism. I'm going to go to the league. It could happen. I mean, I doubt all those guys go. But where are you at from a depth standpoint to withstand that? Now, in the modern era, that question gets more difficult to answer, because the truth is you have answers that you didn't have in the past, which is that I could just pluck some guys in the transfer portal and plug and play. After all, Johnny Wilson is the byproduct of doing just that. After all, Jared Verse is the byproduct of doing just that. And before him was Jermaine Johnson, who was the byproduct of doing just that. This staff has acquitted themselves exceptionally well when it comes to the transfer portal. So you are not bereft of hope when you play out the scenario that all these guys leave, because you know they could be supplanted with guys that have been identified already on other rosters and convinced to come to Tallahassee. It's not the ideal way to keep doing business, but it is a necessary modus operandi for a coaching staff while they're trying to sustain some success level on the field. Because what you can't do is you can't lose those guys, have no answers, save for only in high school recruiting, and then those guys aren't ready, and you have a 5-7 campaign right on the heels of a good season. That would set you back to a place where I don't know that you could overcome it. So a lot of people are very, very nervous about that. And I think the answer is in recruiting to a large extent. Florida State's got to be better. As of right now, according to On3 rankings, Florida State is 16th in recruiting. At some point, you're going to have to start cracking those top 10 recruiting classes again for the long-term success. But in the short term, you know, it is funny. I think you are probably going to have to bring in at least 3 difference makers in the transfer portal for you to sustain a 8-win type campaign.
Yeah, you know, there's a lot to work with there. I hear us, and you know, it's kind of my fault in the first segment talking about the nooner kick with Georgia Tech, and it might be sleepy and a challenge. And you know, Georgia Tech is kind of like my Jacksonville Dolphins, the old Matt Barr special.
Yeah.
I don't feel that negative about next year, even if most of those guys go. The reason is I think the offensive line is going to be good. I think next year the offensive line is going to be good. Yeah. And you've got some young solutions to that problem. You'll have some holdovers who have been here since 1974, and you combine those two things, and I think they're going to be able to run the ball and pass the ball. And I understand that Dylan Gibbons is going to be one of those departures. He has to be. But I like some of the options they have at
golf. You sure we can't find another year for Dylan Gibbons?
I'm pretty sure. I mean, the man's almost as bald as you are at this point. So,
oh yeah, he's on the fast track, Dylan. We see you, baby.
I think he's got to go at some point, and he had a great game this past weekend against Clemson.
Yes, he did.
But I like what I see out of the offensive line. The running back group is going to be just fine. Rodney Hill is eventually going to get some touches. I know we lobbied hard for him against Clemson. It didn't happen. Didn't need to, though, because Trey Benson ran hard, and I think he'll be back next year. Trayshawn could be back again next year. Toafili certainly will be. So you're pretty well set there. Even if Johnny were to go, and I understand that you're going to have to go in the transfer portal to probably find another wide receiver, you're not completely devoid of options at that position as you were last offseason when the final clock ran down to zeros against Florida. You thought, my God, they have to do unbelievable work to find any bodies with a pulse at this particular position. I don't think that's going to be the case this offseason. You got some guys that you like. Johnny's a bona fide difference maker, but I think you'll be improved at tight end next year as well. So offensively, the weapons around whatever quarterback ends up taking snaps for Florida State is going to be more balanced, and so I feel pretty good about that. They scheme up open plays when they don't have dudes. They're going to have some dudes next year. Defensively, I think that's where you got to do some work in the portal if you lose both Fabian Lovett and Jared Verse. I love what's coming up in the near future in the interior of the defensive line. Joshua Farmer has grown up. He's gotten a lot better. Daniel Lyons is going to be a very good player, so is Bishop Thomas. But you need kind of a plugger, somebody who can fill the role of a healthy Robert Cooper, who can neutralize things at the point of attack in order to help that defensive interior go. You're going to have to do some heavy lifting at linebacker. Again, you're going to have to get better there. And in the secondary, it's well documented. You're going to need at least depth, even if Azaria Thomas and Sam McCall graduate up the ranks and they could be, down in, down out contributors. You got those two guys, Shaheem Brown, and we'll see what Kevin Noles is next year, along with Renardo, and that's your mix. You need more. You got to have 3 or 4 more bodies at that particular group. But if I add all those things together, it's a flawed team, but it's not a bad team that's only going to win 5 games. So I feel okay about the long-term projections. And I'm going to assume that out of the list of 4 or 5 guys that you put out there as potential departures, at least 2 of them come back because let's be real. NIL is going to help you retain talent that has a middling draft grade. We've all winked and nodded when Clemson brings back its entire starting defensive line that could have been top 50 picks. And we say, it's amazing how they do that. Well, now you could talk about it in the open. I think a big part of what the collective needs to do is have a retained budget every year. You've got to have a budget set aside for kids that are tweeners that will bring them back for another season. They did it with Jamie Robinson, among others, this year, as far as me reading the tea leaves would go. You got to do that again for next season.
It's probably one of the more fascinating elements of NIL is the retained budget for these schools. Obviously, in places where money is no object, it's not much of a thought. You just find out what a guy wants and what it's going to take and whether or not you think he's worth it. But I do think at Florida State, where that's not the luxury, it is not an endless supply of money. You do have to really evaluate these guys. You know, I don't want to knock them, but if you were evaluating Jamie Robinson, I don't know what his value was. I don't know what that money was. I don't know how much he got to come back or what they did to facilitate that. But if we were going through that process again at the end of this year, based on what I've seen through the first 7 games, I wouldn't spend a lot of money on Jamie Robinson. I'd spend a pretty nominal amount. These days, I don't know what that is. I don't know what is considered a low ball offer to a kid and what's considered to be the norm. It's a weird process we're all going through and getting used to in college football. And that's true of the collectives. Evaluating these guys and what they mean to your team and how much of your budget should go to that player, that's got to be exceptionally difficult, especially when you're not working with the university and you can't discuss it with the coaches. I mean, how on earth do you decide what that is, Tom?
Right. Oh, it's just amazing. These people have incredible powers. I don't know if they call Miss Cleo and they get on a conference call with Miss Cleo and then they find out what's necessary, but they do. Yeah. They do. The thing is, you've got to have all these other ancillary, I know I've used the word a lot, but budgets in order to handle roster, construction every year. Because it's not just about retention for the NFL draft. You also have to have a nest egg away in case another big-time school comes calling for some of your talent. It's a lot easier. I don't know what the NCAA is going to do about unlimited transfers or whatever. I know that's been pitched. It's not going to kick in this offseason. It's easier for a guy like Jared Verse. You got 2 ways here. It's like a 2-way contract. He either goes pro or he stays here. He's already transferred. So if he went somewhere else, unless he graduates, he's got to sit out. So you feel pretty good about, okay, I don't have to fight off 2 enemies here. It's just 1 enemy. But some of these other players who might flash for a week or 2, and then who knows who calls, Georgia or even Clemson or somebody along those lines, you have to guard against that, and you have to have money at the ready because these things can happen within a couple of days of each other. I make a call. I say, hey, what can you do for me? You got 48 hours. I mean, damn, that's not an easy place to be as an organization. So I know that's getting off the beaten path a little bit, but I would ask this question in regards to next year's roster construction. Who is more important to you to ensure Florida State has a high floor for next year's win and loss record? So you got to be considering what is further down the depth chart behind this player. Jared Verse or Jordan Travis? Who is more important for the success of the 2023 season, given what they have behind them? And if you had to spend potato chips to retain one or the other, you couldn't keep both. This is what the collective has to be doing. They have to be going through these exercises. Who would you choose?
Yeah, it's a very difficult exercise specific to those 2 players. I would like to see more. This is a predicament you find yourself in. Did Tate Rodemaker move out from under the tent of suspicion to being a guy that now can play? He can play. It's going to look a little different. There are areas where he'll never be as good as Jordan Travis, and very few people can run like Jordan Travis. So that's fine. He's not going to be that. I think he's every bit the thrower that Jordan Travis is. So I wouldn't worry about that. But is his confidence at a place now where, because he had that night, you now know moving forward with this guy that he's unflappable and he's going to get the most out of his talents as a passer? And he's not a bad athlete. The long scramble showed you that. So, can you win with him? Well, if he's the confident guy that was chucking the ball over the yard in the second half of the Louisville game, is resoundingly, yes, you could. So I'm spending on Jared Verse because I don't have a bona fide pass rush without him. I don't have a guy, when healthy, that is going to consistently. Now, you think Patrick Payton's going to be that guy? Maybe. I mean, we'll see. But even still, if he is, and you lose Verse, you still only, you only have the one there, and that can be mitigated. So I would need more evidence. This is where the coaches really, you have to be able to talk to them and say, what are we doing here? I mean, do you really think he's ready to play? Do you think Duffy will be ready to play? Because you and I don't think so necessarily. Not next year even, maybe. So
he could have a good camp. He's got the potential in him to be ready, but he's got.
But it's not ideal. You'd like him to have to wait one more year, I think. So to me, that's a tough question, Tom. I think I'd spin on Verse, though. At first glance, I think I'd spin on Verse.
I would tend to agree because, again, I'm going to forecast that the offensive line's pretty good next year.
Right, so you can run, which sets things up for Tate to throw the ball down the field.
Much easier decisions to make, and it's not like Tate runs a 5.2 40. Nobody is as dynamic as Jordan Travis, but if a read option is one of the base plays in your offense, Tate can make you earn it by gaining 10 to 12 if you.
Yes, he can. Yeah.
So there is that, but I also know that the good thing is you got 5 more games of evidence to come to kind of crystallize exactly what your options are going to be. Because if Jordan's average over the next 5 games, whatever your win and loss total is, chances are he's going to be coming back or remaining in the college game in some variety. If he's lights out, then the decision's made for you about where you're going to go with it. So the thing is, though, if you want to be nimble, you have to be prepared for every one of these potential scenarios. And it's a nightmare because for a head coach, they're already paranoid. Now they're extra paranoid in the era of just freelance transfers for non-graduate students. But you also, as a collective, it's not the burden of solely the head coach. The collective has to be ready to go as well. And you can't give 100% of your budget to the incoming high school recruiting class or the incoming class plus the transfers that are incoming. It's all about making sure that there are pieces of the pie designated for roster retention on top of transfer portal, and then also making sure that you bring in the high school kids that are going to make the difference in the long run.
It's got to be a maddening time in college football for, say, the boosters who are dealing with a different world. If on the one hand you collect all these funds for projects around the university and things like that, and these days those monies that you're collecting, you're competing in a weird way with these other collectives. And Florida State alumni, fans, boosters, supporters of any kind are at a crossroads. Do I give my money to the university sponsored individual that's calling me for this donation? He works for the university and for the boosters, or this collective that is going to pay players because the players are going to win us games, which is ultimately what I want as a fan. Yeah. If I want to donate to the chemistry department, I can do that. But this, you know what I mean? It's very difficult, I think, to figure it all out right now. And I'll tell you why I bring that up. Doing shows with teams in the Big Ten and talking to other programs for the Sunday morning show and the guys that I've interviewed out of the SEC and the Big Ten, those two conferences, Tom, do not worry about player retention, not from a financial standpoint.
Right.
It never comes up. Like I was having a conversation with a guy talking about what they were going to have to pay to bring in the new coach to Nebraska. And his exact response is, well, money's not an object. They're not worried about the money. They'll pay him, whomever he is, whatever he needs, and that includes for his staff. So whoever they hire is going to get the best of the budget. They don't have to worry about any of it. And that is not the reality we live in, which is scary for Florida State. And we have to hope that is changing all the time. And we know through certain collectives like Rising Spirit is. But, man, I would love to have the liberty of saying we really need a wide receiver and do what USC did.
Well,
USC decided not only do we need a wide receiver, we're going to go get the very best one. The Biletnikoff Award winner, we're just going to go pay him to come here to USC. We're going to pluck him from Pittsburgh, and he's going to come. Well, we're not in that position.
No, but this is where I'll return to something we talked about in the offseason, which is where's your money better spent? Is it spent on overhauling a coaching staff or going after players? And I think that's one of the fundamental things that you've got to ask yourself. Not saying that Mike Norvell is in trouble at all. In fact, I think he's totally fine. But, do you make 3 or 4 changes on the staff and that costs you a player or two? Or do you make 2 changes on the staff and then you get an extra player or two. What makes a bigger difference to you? And that's where this conversation has to be so streamlined, even though it can't be because of legislative hurdles, or at least they can't be on the record due to legislative hurdles. It's an interesting place, and the math you got to do is so different. I think we're fine in terms of discretionary income at Florida State for the next few years, but you do need the cavalry to come in terms of conference changing and TV payout shortly thereafter. But I think we can get to that point where we're in the middle of this decade, and it's not like we're going to buy the luxury car, but we're not going to buy a beater either.
Right.
We'll be able to be functional, and it's a respectable car. That's a fully loaded sedan.
It's a fine automobile.
It's a fully loaded sedan. Is it the $150,000 SUV? No, but it's a fully loaded sedan. This is going to be a nice trip that we go on. But you do need the money for the luxury SUV in the near future, and hopefully that comes.
That's solving for the future from my friends and partners at ISF. They've worked in 18 states for state and local agencies, serving millions of citizens, 40 years in business. They solve for the future every day. They know that you and your staff work hard, and your constituents, they depend on you. You want to streamline workflows, introduce new technologies, make those dreams possible. You're going to do it with ISF. Check them out today, isf.com. It's Jeff Cameron Show, 93.3 Real Talk Radio and Warchant TV.
Right here in our hometown is a local spot where you can take a break from all your worries. A place where everybody knows his name is Smitty's Tap House and Grill. Smitty's deep appreciation for fine craft beers and tasty bar treats sets the stage as the ideal local neighborhood pub. Want to know more? Just visit Smitty'sTapHouse.com to check out the full menu. Come see us at Smitty's Tap House and Grill on Thomasville Road, just north of Cary Forest Parkway. You'll be glad you came, where everybody knows his name.
We all want more energy, more strength, more results. Well, welcome to Orange Theory Fitness as you take a step towards feeling more alive today. Backed by science, Orange Theory's heart rate monitored workout is scientifically designed to keep heart rates in a target zone, spiking metabolism and increasing energy. Orange Theory Fitness is a one-of-a-kind group personal training workout resulting in more energy, visible toning, and extra calorie burn for up to 36 hours. Experience a more vibrant life today with Orange Theory Fitness. To find out more, go to orangetheoryfitness.com.
Your next chance to win $1,000 is coming up at 3 p.m. Don't miss your chance to shake the 93.3 money tree and see what falls out. Planted by the law offices of Face It Brooks. Come back stronger with Face It Brooks.
Hi, this is Justin Colvin, founder of the Medicare Help Desk. I routinely speak to seniors who are overwhelmed by the multitude of coverage options available to them. That's why I created the Medicare Help Desk radio show. Tune in every Sunday at 11:30 a.m., where I provide clear answers to all your questions about Medicare.
Well. Hey, Jeff, look at this place.
Yeah. Well, doing well. It's been a while since I've seen you, brother, but, it hasn't been a while since I've been over to Gordo's. I go there on the regular because of you, Eddie.
Well, we keep you regular.
Well, that's true. But I think of Gordo's as a place to sit down, have a cold beer, talk to your friends, enjoy the sports, eat the delicious food. But I think of you as Uncle Eddie, a man who takes care of his people and takes care of the town.
I appreciate that, Jeff. Hey, and we'll keep you regular.
Gordo's, bringing the flavor and flair of Cuban food to Tallahassee since 1996.
Hey, Matt.
Yes, Greg?
You know all the different ways that you can listen to Real Talk 93.3?
There are several.
So we've got realtalk93.com. You can go back and listen to all of our shows in the podcast section.
That's right. You can also listen on our app as well.
Search Real Talk 93.3 and look for the red microphone and download our app. Never go anywhere without us.
And of course, you can always listen right on the radio.
Well, they are listening.
Are they?
If they're hearing this commercial, then they're listening.
That's true. I hadn't thought about that.
The Greg Tish Show, Monday through Friday, 6 to 9 a.m., only on Real Talk 93.3.
We're long-winded. What do you want? We're talk show hosts. That's what happens. So I went long in the first two segments, and even if we're not in the studio, we want to provide good content, but we got carried away. It's like Tom and I were having a conversation over a cold beer, just talking about what we can do to save FSU and solve for the future, and what's the team going to look like on the back half. I'll tell you what is going to happen next. In the second hour of the program, which is forthcoming, we'll bring in new head baseball coach, whom we brought on right when he was hired, Link Jarrett. He's a fun guy to talk to, and I think a lot of people are excited about him arriving at Florida State and some of the changes that have been made. We'll talk to him about the roster, but we'll talk to him about the facilities and what's possible for Florida State moving forward. It's Link Jarrett next hour. Amongst that, football talk. We'll revisit the picks as well for Redemption Thursday. It's the Jeff Cameron Show, 93.3, Real Talk Radio and Warchant TV.
Wooden Glass has been taking care of families since 1945.
Experienced, reliable professionals who offer only the best, like Wooden's top-of-the-line bath enclosures. Eye-catching storefronts are a specialty at Wooden Glass, and they provide precise installation.
Wooden Glass, Tallahassee's first family in glass. Online at woodenglass.com. Call 850-222-5781.
So let's say you're considering buying a new home in the current climate. All heard that demand is high, inventory is low. So how do you get a leg up on the rest of the buyers all making offers on the same house as you? Oh, that's a toughie. But the first place I'd suggest you start is with a call to my friend Shannon at Legendary Home Loans. Shannon will set you up with a complete pre-approval underwriting. It used to be an upgrade, but nowadays it's got to be standard. You want to get your offer on a new home pushed to the front of the line, you need a TBD full underwriting approval from Legendary Home Loans. You'll shorten or even remove your financing contingency, and the sellers will know that your offer is real and ready to go. It's tough out there these days, folks, so why not have the advantage of a proven winning team in your huddle? Get pre-approval underwriting from my friend Shannon with the one and only Legendary Home Loans. Call now, 844-FSU-LOAN, 844-FSU-LOAN, or just visit FSUHomeLoans.com. FSUHomeLoans.com.
Equal housing lender. MLS number 2270146.
Football at El Jalisco, football at El Jalisco, what a combination. It's a great big celebration. It's football at El Jalisco. I can dig it. Who's playing? Oh, man, everybody. The ACC, the SEC, all the C's, and even the pros. The Bucks, the Steelers, the Giants, the Cowboys. Wow, far out. You bet, man. When the game is on, it's on at El Jalisco with incredible specials on everything from frosty cervezas to salty margaritas.
Does Margarita know?
Dios mío, not again. The best place to watch the game is El Jalisco. College, pros, Monday night, Thursday night, you name it, El Jalisco is football headquarters. And with 5 Tallahassee area locations, there's probably an El Jalisco right around the corner right now.
There's fun to be had every night at the Corner Pocket. Take home prizes on Trivia Tuesdays and Beer Bingo Thursdays. And kickstart your weekend with Martini Fridays. Plus, happy hour runs every weekday and game day specials every time the Noles take the field. Watch all the best games at the Corner Pocket's Vegas Wall, featuring 560 inches of flat screen TV heaven.
Oh, really?
The best food, the best drinks, and the best place to watch all the games. Tallahassee loves the Corner Pocket.
By the way, Jason mentioned me doing a shirtless celebration, which isn't going to happen. But Ira's heard this, Jeff. I know you don't listen to Wake Up Warchant.
I do sometimes.
Do you think it's weird that I sent Aslan a shirtless pic of myself?
Incredibly.
When's the last time you sent a shirtless pic to another guy?
I never have.
Never.
There has never been a moment to do so.
But look,
that would be a strange.
At first, I told him if he sent it to me, I'd block him. But then I thought, you know what? If he sent it to me, I would tweet it.
Yeah, I wouldn't. That's why I wouldn't send it to you. I
would tweet it immediately.
I made Aslan delete it.
Guys, what do I do?
But Aslan works out a lot. He's a workout fiend. I thought he'd be proud of his partner for the strides that I'd made. That's all.
I don't think we should have said this publicly.
It's fine. It's already out there.
He did it on their show, and I texted him that morning, and I said, holy blank.
Yeah. What are you doing?
You're talking about that on the radio.
Yeah.
Look,
people hear these things.
It's vain. I don't care, but I felt good about I sent it to Stephanie.
That's beyond vain, man.
Half as a joke.
Vain is looking yourself in the mirror and thinking it. Sending it to somebody is a whole different level.
I took a picture and I just went down my contacts. I'm like, who wants to see this? Who wants to see this?
So I begin every morning with a shower and I take a picture of myself naked. And then when my wife wakes up, it's waiting on her phone.
Oh, that's
it's
nice.
just a good way to start the day.
That's normal.
I can understand that, but never to another dude.
Right. I mean, I just
That's
thought
what happened.
I thought most of it was it was probably half joke, half, hey, look, man, look, your partner's trying to get in shape.
Yeah, we should go another direction. We should move on in another direction. That actually, for all the fun we have and yucking it up, that's a little. Come on, man.
It's a little concerning.
It's a little. It speaks to a mindset I'm a little worried about.
Well, when else would he ever see
what
me
kind
shirtless?
of approval are you searching
Well,
for
a
here,
lot.
man? I'm
looking for a lot of
little
approval.
worried.
I'm not doing this just for myself. I'm doing it for all of your enjoyment
that's the
too.
parent.
I want you to enjoy this, Ira. We need to go to break. I will take off my shirt for you, Ira.
I'll take a picture of it. I will take a picture of it.
Stop this madness.
Sorry.
Let's get back to the show. I'm frightened.
Right here in our hometown is a local spot where you can take a break from all your worries. A place where everybody knows his name is Smitty's Tap House and Grill. Smitty's deep appreciation for fine craft beers and tasty bar treats sets the stage as the ideal local neighborhood pub. Want to know more? Just visit Smitty'sTapHouse.com to check out the full menu. Come see us at Smitty's Tap House and Grill on Thomasville Road, just north of Cary Forest Parkway. You'll be glad you came, where everybody knows his name.
We all want more energy, more strength, more results. Well, welcome to Orange Theory Fitness as you take a step towards feeling more alive today. Backed by science, Orange Theory's heart rate monitored workout is scientifically designed to keep heart rates in a target zone, spiking metabolism and increasing energy. Orange Theory Fitness is a one-of-a-kind group personal training workout resulting in more energy, visible toning, and extra calorie burn for up to 36 hours. Experience a more vibrant life today with Orange Theory Fitness. To find out more, go to orangetheoryfitness.com.
Hour number 2, Jeff Cameron Show, 93.3, Real Talk Radio, Warchant TV. Good to be with you as I broadcast from the house today. A little different. Obviously, I mentioned it last hour. This is not live, recorded just a little bit earlier today. But that's okay. We got a treat for you coming up. I talked to Florida State baseball coach Link Jarrett quite literally an hour ago, guys, at the time that you watched this. It's very fresh. He had time for us today. And I wanted to go through some things with him and talk to him about the acclimation process as he returned home and became the head coach at Florida State. But also, he's had a chance to now lay eyes on some things, not just this roster where he's got work to do, but at the same time, he's got some real good players here too. So I think he's pretty excited about that. But also just the things that Hauser needs or what it's going to be like for him and his staff. Luckily, he was able to bring over, and I asked him about that. He was able to bring over his entire staff from Notre Dame, and so they speak the same language. They're able to impart the messaging consistently across the board. So he can be over here doing one thing, and they can be there teaching it over in another area. And we know everything's going to be consistent. And I think that's important, obviously, but he's got to be able to recruit. In order to be able to recruit and get great players in here and compete with the money that the SEC has, the money advantage that we see these SEC schools have, in many cases, the facilities advantage that many of these SEC schools have now. I did want to ask him a big picture question about the immediate effects of some of the changes that they've made, both in-game effects that will have in terms of some of the sod that's been laid, the new sod, and also some of the artificial stuff around home plate and the baselines, but then also the stuff that they're doing with the bullpens and what needs to be done, what still needs to be done, the long-term view of what Florida State has to do in order to be able to be competitive. And I think you're really going to enjoy a thorough conversation that I had with Link. He did a great job coming in here today and working with us and talking about that field construction, that bullpen construction, the roster, the upcoming season, and everything that has gone on since he transitioned. So we'll be doing that here in just a minute. It's a lengthy interview. At the end, of course, we still have probables, just one game today for baseball. I almost said Florida State baseball. Soon enough, guys. But I think you're going to enjoy the Link Jarrett interview. So that is all forthcoming. Stay with Jeff Cameron Show, 93.3, Real Talk Radio, and Warchant TV.
This is Kyle, service manager from Barano Heating and Air. Schedule an appointment from your mobile device to learn about our Total Comfort Service program. With guaranteed same-day service, 15% off necessary repairs, and $25 berry bucks to use towards air filters and other products. Turn to the experts at Carrier and Barano Heating and Air. Any day, anytime, anywhere. Online at baranoac.com.
Florida license CAC 1816-186.
Hey, Nole fans, our partner ISF Inc. is a national management and IT consulting firm located right here in Tallahassee, Florida, solving the future for state governments through strategy, process, and technology. As a trusted advisor for state governments, ISF knows the importance of defining a clear and detailed strategy. Our friends at ISF can help your organization create a strategy that sets you on a path to success. ISF, your vision plus our expertise brings your brilliant ideas to life. Visit ISF.com to learn more. ISF, solving the future. Imagine for a moment that you are completely weightless with zero gravity. All of your worries and stress melt away. Your mind stops racing and you fall into a profound state of pure relaxation. This is available to you right now at Tallulah Delta 8 Plus Floating in Railroad Square for just $50. These state-of-the-art floating pods are unlike anything else you've ever experienced. And while you're there, you can shop for some of the latest and greatest CBD and Delta 8 products on the market. Natural pain management, stress relief, and better sleep are all at your fingertips at Tallulah. Tell them Jeff Cameron sent you and thank me later.
You were always more than my mom. You were my role model, my best friend, and biggest supporter. You filled my days with unconditional love. And you also prepared for the day when you couldn't be here. Because of the woman you were back then, I'm able to be the woman I am now. Your planning made this moment possible.
Set your family up for life. Southern Farm Bureau Life Insurance. Your friends for life.
This is Andy Cohen. When I was a law enforcement officer, I devoted my life to a career of service and protection. Who's protecting you? Give me a call. 850-671-FARM. That's 671-FARM. Helping you is what we do best.
Southern Farm Bureau Life Insurance Company, Jackson, Mississippi. Not licensed to do business in all 50 states.
This is Dr. James Ryan Finn.
And Dr. Shannon Lord.
We are the dynamic duo at Finn Chiropractic, where we seek to get to the cause of your problem.
Whether you have neck pain, back pain, headaches, or any joint stiffness,
we've developed the Phenomenal Health Exam with some high-tech ways to get to the cause.
Our Phenomenal Health Exam will give the answers you need.
Get in for the Phenomenal Health Evaluation.
Visit our website at finnchiro.com, FENNCHIRO.com.
Because your chiropractor loves you.
There's nothing you can do about it.
If you're a business owner of any kind, you need advanced fire protection services. We are AFPS, and we provide high-quality life safety services throughout Northwest Florida, and we've been doing it since 1989, with offices now in Tallahassee. Fire sprinklers, fire alarms, fire extinguishers, hood suppression systems, and emergency exit lights. For all of your life safety equipment, we've got you covered 24/7. We are Advanced Fire Protection Services. For a free life safety system evaluation, visit WeSaveLives.com. That's WeSaveLives.com.
We all want more energy, more strength, more results. Well, welcome to Orange Theory Fitness as you take a step towards feeling more alive today. Backed by science, Orange Theory's heart rate monitored workout is scientifically designed to keep heart rates in a target zone, spiking metabolism and increasing energy. Orange Theory Fitness is a one-of-a-kind group personal training workout resulting in more energy, visible toning, and extra calorie burn for up to 36 hours. Experience a more vibrant life today with Orange Theory Fitness. To find out more, go to orangetheoryfitness.com.
Welcome back, Jeff Cameron Show, 93.3 Real Talk Radio and Warchant TV. It's my pleasure now to be joined by the head baseball coach at Florida State University. Second time we've talked. I'm excited. He's had a chance to get acclimated again, if you will. Link Jarrett joins us now on the Jeff Cameron Show. Coach, how are you? Good afternoon. Thanks for taking time.
Jeff, always great to talk with you. We're starting to settle in here a little bit. Things are not as turbulent as when you walk in the door for the first time in 25 years, and it's been fun to be on the field with the kids and watch them move around a little bit and just to try to assess their skills and the new field construction, some of the things we've been able to pull off in the last few months. It's been refreshing to me, and I think makes the players' daily work much more efficient. So it's been exciting, and we're finally looking at seeing another team in a little scrimmage, which is always great on both ends. Kennesaw State, I've known Ryan for a long time. They have a great program, and for our guys to see somebody in the other dugout definitely helps. It's a win.
Yeah, Coach, I'm going to ask you about some of that construction with the bullpen and around home plate and all that here in a minute. I am excited to hear your take on that. I do wonder, the last time we talked, you had just been hired. We welcomed you back to Tallahassee. And I was thinking to myself, man, he had a lot to get to. And one of the things, it's always an interesting process, but probably one that I would guess is made a lot easier and that you were able to bring over your staff. And I know that you mentioned the other day, messaging, for example, just having the ability to know that all those coaches and you are on the same page so that while you're doing one thing, maybe they're doing something else over there, but the message is the same. Talk a little bit about how much easier that's made the transition, and also, being on the same page at all times certainly makes things a little bit more efficient for the players as they pick up your messages.
No doubt, Jeff. When you get to Notre Dame, I had coaches that I had never worked with before, and clearly I had 40 players staring at me, wondering what the heck I was talking about half the time. And sometimes the coaches felt the same way. Your system and how you do things on the field, in the locker room, scouting reports, even with the recruiting, there's a template and a roadmap that you feel works. Now, the recruitment at a private school, which was a national recruiting effort at Notre Dame, it was a little bit different. And the coaching staff that I hired there had to have an understanding of what it was like to recruit nationally and managing private school recruitment and the academics at that level. Once we spent our time together there, not only was it very evident that these guys were phenomenal coaches and recruiters, but I think we spread our wings a little bit and learned so much more through recruiting at Notre Dame that will help us here at Florida State. Florida State it's a global brand, just like Notre Dame was. Now, when you have the benefits of a state institution that has some scholarshiping in the state versus what it looked like at a private school, clearly it helps for that roster to have a basis of Florida students. That does help. Now, we do need to be able to go out and extend and reach to other parts of the country to recruit the talent that you have to compete at this level. So I think those converging factors made it very easy for me to invite my staff with me, and Rich and Chuck and Brad and Sean, who's in a player development role. Now, when you start to get to the communication with the players on how we do the X's and O's on the field, I could step out of that if I needed to, because through our experience at Notre Dame, the pieces of how we want to run our offense and how we want to do our pitching and catching and our infield and outfield defense and alignment and scouting reports, you can take that from program to program. But I think the overall reach that we learned through recruiting at Notre Dame will help us at Florida State. And with the Florida knowledge that Rich brought in and I brought in coming in here, like we had that box checked just naturally from our history with recruiting. So, Jeff, it's been phenomenal, and it's allowed me to focus on some other things here at the facility, which, quite frankly, if the coaching staff had been new together again, we would have had to spend a lot more time trying to figure out where our left fielder needs to stand and where our center fielder goes and what our outfield shifts mean, so on and so forth, with the actual tactics in the game. So those guys have been a blessing to the program and myself, and we have a great time trying to push this program forward here.
I'm always fascinated, Coach. Link, I'm wondering how long it took you. We're talking still big picture stuff here, but people remember you as a player. You're back here as a coach. And I am kind of wondering how long it took you in your coaching career to kind of figure out what it was you valued, what it was that made you unique in terms of your coaching style? You talked about what works for you and how it works in recruiting, how it works in teaching, how it works in daily practices, what you want to do with facilities. How long did it take you to develop that over your career as a coach till you decided, I think this is what works for me, this is what works for us, this is how I can teach it, and this will be what is most efficient and best in terms of my efforts as a coach?
Well, you start as a player, and I played for a good while. I wasn't a super talented player, but you start to watch as a high school player. Jeff Hogan here in town, great coach, just taught me a lot. And then Mike Martin, clearly just a phenomenal leader of young men and a tactician at the highest level. So you start to, even at a young age, draw upon some of the guys you're around that you see influence players around you and yourself. You start there, and then you go into professional baseball. And some of the guys I got to learn from, Don Zimmer and Don Baylor and Art Howe. When you're around those type of guys in game settings and spring training environments, in the locker room, on the bus, you just start to soak it in, and you learn things that happen on the field that are done in a manner that you would like to emulate. And you see tactical pieces that go on in games, or instructional pieces, or how somebody works with the catchers, or how the first baseman handle things. Like what are the infield depths and the positioning, and how do you do double play pivots? Like what are some of the messages that worked as you evaluated this? Then you get your hand at coaching, and you have to start presenting this thing your way. So you're blending the things you've learned as a player and as a, infant level coach. When you first step out on the field at Flagler College, I didn't really know what I was doing. I just knew what worked and what I had learned through the years. So then when you're actually in the instructional phase and the wins and losses start to ride on you based on your decision making and your recruitment and your tactics, how you train, how you practice, the timing, the strength and conditioning, you start to create your recipe for building a championship program. And as an assistant, you have suggestion mode. And then when you get your head coaching job at Greensboro, now these are your final decisions on essentially everything that's going on in the program. So I felt like I lined this up for, 10 or 12 years as an assistant. Now you're the head coach. And I think there's a learning curve that goes into how you handle things as the head coach. Now you're hiring staff, athletic trainers, strength and conditioning, the calendar of practice, why you do the calendar of practice the way you do it, the game schedule, like when you travel, why you travel, what time you take batting practice. There's certain things then as a head coach that you have to figure out. And I felt like I was in my mind ready to be a head coach after so long as an assistant. Then 3 or 4 years as the head coach, I think you start to learn and feel what works correctly for you as the head coach. So, and when you've done that in multiple programs, you feel like you have a system that works, but it is not an easy process. And it's something that evolves as an assistant in different areas, then as a head coach, and figuring out what works for your personality as the head coach. And then how do you move that system to different programs?
It's always interesting to me, Link. I appreciate you taking us through what it was like to go from being a player to an assistant coach to a head coach and learning all that entails. And the reason I love it, I love talking to people after they've arrived at a place that's they've worked so hard to get to. You learn from everybody, no matter the subject, whether it's baseball, like we're talking, or somebody who teaches math, that if you think you know a subject, it's not just when you do it, it's when you have to teach it. And then, so it's one thing, you were a great player. You thought you probably knew a ton about baseball. You probably know now, oh man, I really didn't know anything back then. There's so much more that you learn when you see it from another lens, right? It's fascinating.
And the scary thing is when you think you know it, and then you learn that, man, I didn't really know it. And it's fascinating. I wish I could remember the professor, but third person teaching is what you're referring to.
Right.
You really don't know it until you can teach the material to somebody else.
Correct.
In a way that they can master that material, whether it's baseball, whether it's some of the Mark Ziegler's communication class, which I loved. But I remember those concepts of you truly know it when you can step back and teach it versus just the material being digested to you personally. So
yeah, and you have to know it from every direction because of the questions you could be asked. They're all different. And your ability to then instantly recall, understand, and then teach, as you say, to be able to relate to the person asking you. And you have to do it with your student athletes.
Right. And that's what we discussed with a coaching staff, that they're now able to teach the things that I was trying to. It wasn't that they didn't know baseball. It was my terminology and language and tactics were a little different. So the third person teaching initially was those guys. Now it's the fact that these guys can teach it because they know it so well. Yeah.
So basically, second full week of fall ball. How do they look? What have you learned?
Jeff, I like our group. I think there's a separation right now. I do see that. We have some exceptional players that have been through it, and they may not be juniors and seniors, but there are clearly some guys that have been through the battles and get it. I didn't recruit the incomers. So learning the incomers and where to put them, if you've recruited the athletes for, in some cases, 3 years, you really know where you want to start, at least start with those guys. Well, for us, the onboarding really came from, I would say July, August, and you can watch video and you can look at statistics, but until you see them in front of you competing a little bit, you don't know where to move with positional changes or stuff on the mound. Are there things that guys need to do to ratchet it up on the mound? So we're at that point right now, and especially with some of the younger players. So these freshmen are learning right now, like on the mound, there has to be a separating factor for you. And they're young. They're not as physical as a Montgomery or a Wyatt Crowell. Those guys are a little more physical. They've been through it. So then you take the Ben Barretts and the Jamie Arnolds, and you're trying to figure out what separates. Is it maybe the velocity as it ticks up? Is it a secondary pitch? The use of a secondary pitch? Because when they're going out and facing some of the older hitters, some of those guys that have logged 400, 500 college at-bats, they've seen it. But the younger pitchers haven't necessarily seen the capabilities of some of the older hitters. The position players, the guys behind the plate, the infielders, the pace of the game, the velocity with which the ball comes off the bat, the difference in facing a Wyatt or a Montgomery versus facing the high school pitcher. So the growth from the young guys is what we need. And some of these young guys are going to factor in, and them learning and progressing. We have that separation. I see older guys experience physical, and then a group of younger guys that we've got to push them along to try to get them to mesh and have more of a look of the experienced college player. That's what I see right now.
Kind of curious, Coach, circling back at the outset, you made reference to working hand in hand, and I know I read this as well. You said you worked hard with Chip and others as to those who came in and helped field construction, whether we're talking about the bullpen or the difference in the dugout. But I was, in particular, to be honest with you, I was really fascinated by what you were describing, or at least from what I've read, around the plate and the turf and working with them to get what you wanted. What does that mean? I mean, I know what that looks like. I've seen it. I've been over there to cover football, and I can see the changes in this. But what does that mean when you say you're working directly with the manufacturers about how you want it to? I think you're saying how you want it to respond.
Well, the turf evolution is fascinating. I had never been on a turf surface as a coach other than the opposing coach. And when you roll into Louisville or Virginia Tech and you jump on their turf, Wake Forest, you know you're on turf, but you haven't had discussions with the manufacturers as to what they can do with the modern day turf. They are creating a turf surface that emulates the clay, the dirt field, but there's total consistency with it. So for example, at our home plate circle, it plays like dirt. And when you're in it, it's ground up olive pit, like the core pits of olives. They grind that up. The materials, it's really neat. So when those cleats are in that turf, which is filled with the olive core, it has the look and feel of a clay batter's box. And if I walked you up there blindfolded, you really couldn't tell what it is when it's done correctly with the newest product that's available. So you have that. You also have the batter's boxes that are always down. You have the foul lines that are down, and the base running from home to first and from third to home, it takes place in an artificial surface, which doesn't need water. It doesn't need to be chalked every day. It doesn't need to be groomed and edged. You eliminate a lot of the headaches you have in that area, and you have a much more consistent surface. I know for a long time here, the front of that plate, it happened in our game when we played, our Notre Dame team was here. Our second baseman, Jared Miller, chopped the ball in the front of the plate, and the thing bounced up. Their second baseman, I think it was Green, basically caught it in right field, and we scored the runner from third, obviously, and the guy from second. So the maintenance of the front of that clay, it's almost impossible to keep up when the temperatures and the heat here gets to be the way it is. And because of the roof, the roof structure at Hauser, you never could really grow grass. So behind home plate, that grass was always a battle, and we've eliminated that. I know they put turf down 20 years ago. We just pulled that turf a little closer and brought it into fair territory by 2 feet. Around first and third, we moved the turf away from the bases a little bit, so there's more dirt, keeping the activity a little further away from the edge of the turf. That's where we ran into trouble here previously, is that turf around the bases almost it was too close to the action. So that lip and the dirt worked its way into the edge, and we've eliminated that. So this is a win. Eventually, Jeff, we'd like to take that warning track, the dark brown turf. We're going to try to run it all the way around. So you're not going to have the dust in the bleachers in left field and right field. It'll be a better situation for the fans.
That's pretty cool. And I was thinking about it too. If you were a hitter, I suppose it would impact the way you understood certain types of bunts. You're going to get the same reaction every time, right? Like, so you'd be able to understand what you were doing when you lay a ball down.
That ball is coming off the front of that plate. It's going to be the same way every time. Your catchers, they're not going to have some awkward high kick off the hard play. You're not going to have an issue where it's damp or muddy as the temperatures in the night games. Sometimes as that drops, you'll actually see the moisture work its way up. You're not going to have to deal with any of that. And we practice. The difference in us and what you see on TV, like last night, the Astros stadium, those guys don't practice on that field every day. Like, it's a big league stadium, and they play 162 games. Well, 81 of those games are on the road, and that field can be manicured and taken care of. And a college field gets beat up far more than a major league field. So you have to look at how you want to practice and take that into account when you're building your facility, so that you're creating a consistent environment, but also an efficient maintenance program that you focus on maybe some things that you should focus on versus fighting the fight in some of the areas that you seem to not be able to win the fight. So let's eliminate it.
One of these days, you and I are going to do a separate podcast where I'm just going to ask you questions that others might find boring, but that you and I would love about fields and how to arrange. I love this. I find this fascinating. But in the interim,
the bullpen, hey, Jeff, I'm telling you, the bullpen area, what we've done down there.
Yeah.
The space was there, but it wasn't productive space because it wasn't level. The turf wasn't level. It wasn't the turf that stays cooler. The turf that we put in has a substance in it that keeps the temperature 35 degrees lower than it is if it's the normal turf. So when you think about it, right field at Hauser Stadium is very tight. So we now have the bullpen in right field, but we've added space on the back end of the bullpen that is bigger than the actual bullpen. And it keeps the guys out of harm's way when you're standing in right field and you're 250 feet from home plate and balls are flying around. They can go into this auxiliary space and do their mobility, their arm care. They can do some basic conditioning, their agilities. They can throw. It's 90 feet long. It's about 60 feet wide. So we just took some of the space that we don't have in right field and put it in a better area where they don't have to dodge line drives and outfielders running around. It's great.
That's very cool. And that's the immediate impact as you come in and work with Chip and others. Obviously, those that have been big-time boosters for Florida State baseball, getting to know them, the people who care deeply about the program and want it to succeed. These are all the roads you have to navigate as you come in and take over the helm. And I'm curious, what are the long-term plans? Short-term, I mean, you may not have all day, I understand, but we're hearing about the immediacy of the things you've done right now. I'm curious what's possible for Florida State over the next, say, 5 to 7 years. I'm not talking about wins and losses. We know you got to win games. I'm talking about like projects in your mind that you think will modernize Florida State and give the best opportunity for you to recruit at an elite level, et cetera.
Well, we put in a camera system. So we now have 6 cameras and we started scrimmaging last week. So the footage that we can obtain from the open side of the hitter, the open side of the pitcher, straight center field, and behind home plate, those camera angles are invaluable instructional components to what we do. And it's the library. It's sitting right here behind me. This system is phenomenal, and you can zoom in. And the technology, whether it's turf or the cameras or the analytics, it gets better every month. There's something that has improved. So we got that camera system in place. Now, as we learn it, like this isn't a 5-year thing, but it's a 5-week piece to learn how to use this and get it to the players correctly. So we've started that. The tradition room, Jeff, we have to update that area. The tradition room is great, but when you start with the idea of the tradition room, this has probably been a 30-year project. The way the displays are visible now has outdated itself. So we need to update the players in the history of the program. It's second to none. We need to digitize and update how we display the history of the program. So the tradition room, and I've talked to Mike Lloyd about it. His name's on it. That's something we need to do. It's just outdated. The effort is phenomenal. Like everybody did what should have been done when this started. But clearly, when you fast forward 25 years and you filled up the walls, we have to update that. The batting facility, Jeff, it needs to be addressed. There are some issues in there, and we've addressed some of the basic things that I could pull off with the visibility and with the surface itself. But we need to address that building, and long term, it probably needs to be something that is enclosed. All of the debris from the concourse works its way into the batting facility. So you have trash and peanut shells and squirrels get in there, and it's in the wind. It's very hot in there when it's warm and when the wind gets in there. So when you're trying to do things and the nets are blowing around, ideally in this day and age, that facility should be an enclosed, climate controlled space. So that's something that needs to be done. And then for the fans, Jeff, these are the best fans in college baseball. I've been everywhere. There's nowhere else I can go coach as an opposing coach. I've been through it all the SEC places. I've seen it all, the Texas schools. Our fans are the best, and they deserve a functional space to come enjoy 40 games. We have a chance to play 40, maybe more home games at Dick Hauser. So I want the experience to be what it should be for the best fans. I want the restrooms to be functional and clean. I want the seating to be comfortable. I would like to, at some point, address the coloring of the seats. We have a lot of different colored garnets, and Michael has done a great job. We've tried to incorporate more garnet. So the facilities have moved away from the traditional, that hunter green, but some of the garnets over time fade. So we need to address some of the basic refreshing pieces to a facility that has to happen. The sound system, I had them come out last week. They altered that. I had some concerns with the sound system for the fans. We're changing the scoreboard template a little bit so it's more fan friendly. We're putting in a new backstop net. That'll come in later this fall. The old one is not fan friendly. It's not eye candy. It's a little bit distracting. So the netting is almost transparent that we're going to put in. It'll be much better. Long term, there's talk of what we need to do with Hauser overall. We have some water issues that need to be taken care of. I know campus is working on that. There are discussions of would this stadium be better suited to go over near College Town. So, Jeff, in the next 5 to 7 years, I think you're going to see a lot of movement in one direction or the other. Hauser's historic, and there have been just phenomenal players and moments and games and things that have gone on in the stadium that it's appealing. And when you walk in here, I think you go to some of those places in your mind of some of the great moments in Florida State baseball. So that is one reason we'd like to keep this thing fresh, and there's pull to keep it right where it is. But clearly that batting facility and some of the other just structural upgrades and updates that we need to do will give the fans a better experience. I think there's also talk, Jeff, about could we make one of the bleacher areas more of a picnic type viewing spot instead of standard bleachers? Now, what does that do? The capacities, I don't know, but there has been a conversation about could we make left field like that bleach? Could we make that a more like golf
fan friendly,
course, like the 18th hole golf course? Like you have people that can stand and eat and hang out, and it's not just traditional seating. So there's a lot. And Jeff, I will say this: people have donated in our chartering, our flying for the number of games we play and the length of a weekend series. This is not a football game, basketball, soccer, where those teams go play one game and they come home. We're going Thursday night and we play Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and we have to get home. And the flight situation for us when we have to fly is very difficult and it's costly. So some of our fundraising efforts have to simply be to offset the cost of the necessity to charter some of these trips, because quite frankly, we can't get out of Tallahassee and get back in a functional time frame to play these 3-game series. So that's something we will always have to push for.
Link, this is music to my ears, buddy. I have been covering Florida State athletics for well over 20 years. I was there at the same time you were there. I love Florida State baseball. I bring these concerns up on my daily show for years and years and years. I feel like we're just scratching the surface. This has been fun. And I know everybody gets excited. Just the fact that the schedule came out and there's a game, an exhibition game coming up, and we all know that. But now baseball's on our mind, and it's great to catch up with you. We'll do it again. Obviously, we'll have plenty of chances before the season starts. But it's good to talk to you again, Coach. Thanks for spending so much time with us, and I appreciate the insight a lot.
Jeff, loved it, and we'll have that off script discussion if you want to talk facilities. We might need to come out here and walk around, and we can really dive deeper into this, because I know you love it. I love it, and it helps the players. So I've enjoyed chatting with you, and thank you for all you do for Florida State.
Absolutely. Be well, good sir, and I'll take you up on that offer. We'll do it real soon. Be good.
Thanks, Jeff.
Your local news now.
The Tallahassee Police Department has stated that the human remains found Monday near Appalachia Parkway are believed to be Jason Winokur. A group of individuals discovered skeletal remains in the area of the 2600 block of Appalachia Parkway. The 3 individuals found the remains while searching for artifacts in the woods as a hobby. The location where the remains were found is less than half a mile from Winokur went missing. He was last seen on August 17th of 2021. He was staying in the Spring Hill Suites and walked out of his hotel room at 1 a.m. He was in Tallahassee dropping off his daughter at college. A search was initiated at the time in the wooded area where his remains were found, but he was not located. The Less Fortunate Still Matters Foundation is packing up an 18-wheeler full of donations and headed back to South Florida for the second time. On October 6th, the organization brought over 20,000 bottles of water plus other supplies, helping over 3,000 hurricane victims, and they are at it again. This is Rachel Lene with your Real Talk 93.3 local news update, brought to you by Macklemore Systems, Tallahassee's go-to Mac store. Check them out online at MacklemoreSystems.com.
This is meteorologist Paul Trombley with your Real Talk 93.3 weather update. Bright sunshine expected today with a high of 65. North winds 5 to 10 miles per hour. Clear skies and quiet again tonight. Lows dip down to about 37. Ample sunshine expected tomorrow. Highs level off around 69. Sunny skies and calm Friday with daytime highs approaching 74. 80 Saturday. This report is brought to you by the Lawn Johns. For all your landscaping and lawn care needs, visit thelawnjohns.com. Right now, 43.
Hi, this is the legendary Mary Bush Smith inviting you to tune in every Sunday morning from 8 to 9 o'clock a.m. for Sunday Morning Gospel. We'll feature our sponsor, TLC Chiropractic, Dr. Gregory Eisman, 850-222-5700.
Your next chance to win $1,000 is coming up at 3 p.m. Don't miss your chance to shake the 93.3 money tree and see what pulls out. Planted by the law offices of Basic Brooks. Come back stronger with Basic Brooks.
Well. Hey, Jeff, look at this place.
Yeah. Well, doing well. It's been a while since I've seen you, brother, but, it hasn't been a while since I've been over to Gordo's. I go there on the regular because of you, Eddie.
Well, we keep you regular.
Well, that's true, but I think of Gordo's as a place to sit down, have a cold beer, talk to your friends, enjoy the sports, eat the delicious food. But I think of you as Uncle Eddie, a man who takes care of his people and takes care of the town.
I appreciate that, Jeff. Hey, and we'll keep you regular.
Gordo's, bringing the flavor and flair of Cuban food to Tallahassee since 1996.
Hey, Greg Tish here along with
Matty Rowe.
And you can listen to us Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. on Real Talk 93.3. Matt, we give away a couple things each week.
Just a few.
We got the Florida Farm Bureau Insurance Wheel of Food. We have Give Me a Second, where we play a second of a song and you guess that song. And we also play FLA or Nay. We have a lot of fun Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. on
The Greg Tish Show.
Think that's enough?
We could talk about our feelings.
There's a lot.
The Greg Tish Show, Monday through Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. only on Real Talk 93.3.
Wrapping it up, Jeff Cameron Show, 93.3 Real Talk Radio, Warchant TV. And thus, as we're wont to do, we will get into the probables for the matchups today. I do want to say thank you to my friends at Tallulah. They're finally going to, not that they're excited about this, but they're finally going to get to see me. I'm going to float today, Tom. I'm going to float today. It's going to happen. I'm going to be able to report back to everybody about the relaxation and the pain relief and the expedited recovery from working out at Orange Theory. I'll see tonight if I sleep better. Apparently, these are all byproducts of floating in their pods at Tallulah over there off a railroad. You can improve circulation and oxygen flow and reduce your blood pressure. I mean, there's all kinds of goodness. You're not going to recognize me tomorrow.
Yeah, you're going to look like Dalsim, the fighter in Street Fighter. You're going to be so stretchy and limber. You're going to be like, Stretch Armstrong.
Yeah. By the way, that was my favorite toy growing up was my Stretch Armstrong. I love that toy because it had a little bubble, and if you would push the bubble, it just felt even squishier than the other parts of the Stretch Armstrong. By the way, they made a monster that fought Stretch Armstrong. And he had a weird alien face to him, and I got him too. And I used to have Stretch Armstrong and the monster fight each other. And I really do miss the age of being able to have things fight. Little army men fighting, your Star Wars figures fighting. Oh, I used to have it all laid out in the living room. I had an entire Star Wars set.
Yep.
And it was awesome. I love it.
My parents gave me a little container for my toys. It was a plexiglass clear castle. And it was probably, 2.5 feet tall.
Mm.
And so that would be the fortress that was the basis for all battles that I had. So the Green Army men were on the front lines, figure that, for the actual full-size action figures. And so there were, insurgencies, and there were all kinds of counteroffensives. And the kitchen table was covered in all these things. And my dad would say, when are we going to be able to eat at the kitchen table again? Are we ever going to eat at the kitchen table? Or are we just going to have you Green Army men here? And it was just, I wish we had better camera technology back in those days because I would love to see the setup. It was impressive. I think all of the things that we did as young kids when we were setting up these battles, those things are actually kind of bits of artwork. I would like to have that, but I don't.
Well, and it fostered an imagination that I worry gets undercut by technology. Now, I'm not one of these guys that thinks all technology is terrible, but I do think that it doesn't require much imagination to pick up a phone and have a mini computer in your hand at all times, or to play an advanced video game in today's world. I mean, I do think the way that you had to entertain yourself for hours on end lent itself to drawn out strategies, plans of attack, and ways to set up fortresses and the counter offenses of which you speak, because you had nothing but time on your hands and no distractions. You had hours to decide that this was going to be the central area of focus, and that anybody who penetrated this one area would likely win the battle. But I'm going to set it up so that's impossible. And I know every angle you're going to attempt to attack. So believe me, I've got my flank covered as well here. I mean, there is no chance you're getting in here.
So my officers for the Green Soldiers, because as time went on, like most other things, they got more flimsy. The Green Soldiers, it's like cars. We had steel boats, and now these things are, they would tear right through them. Anyway, when my grandparents passed away up in Queens, they still had in their attic Green Soldiers from the 50s, like straight out of World War II Green Soldiers.
Hardcore.
And they were more like yellowish green too. I don't know if that's time or if that's the mold that back in the day was the standard, but they weren't that Kelly or forest green that we saw when we were kids. And certainly they became popular again with the first Toy Story movie. Those things were back on shelves and kids bought them up. But those were my officers, because those things were heavy duty. I mean, you might be able to kill somebody with some of those Green Soldiers from soldiers from back in the day. Those things were dense, man. Well, those are my guys who are just, they had the binoculars and the detail of those things. The detail and then those molds were exceptional.
Yeah, I loved the scout with the binoculars, man. I had several throughout the area there. They were making sure they were keeping an eye on everything. They'd come back sometimes, too, to let everybody know that there was an attack coming from the east. Yeah, no, and also I would note that you correctly talked about how flimsy things are made today. It's a great drive-by truckers lyric. Now Cadillacs are fiberglass. He's lamenting as he's explaining to Elvis, who's deceased as well. That said, we should do probables. So if you'd like to hit the queue, I'm ready to go with just the two games. But by the way, I do have a complaint. My complaint is that if I'm reading this correctly, these two games today are on at the exact same time.
That right.
Have you seen that?
No, but I'll take a look. I have the lay internet.
All right. Well, I'm seeing 7:37 for both games. One on TBS, the other on FS1, and that is not acceptable.
No. You're golden here. No, it's because they're staggered. You only have the one game tonight.
I see what's happening. One's Thursday, one's Friday.
Yeah. You get your ALCS matchup tonight with the Astros leading the Yankees, who are their sons, 1-0 in that series. Yeah.
Luis Severino and Framber Valdez, your matchup there, by the way. Game 2, Houston, as Tom noted, leads 1-0. Houston winning last night, 4-2 behind the ageless Justin Verlander. It is insane to watch that guy pitch at that age and to dominate the way that he did last night, and to still be throwing gas late into the game. And I don't know, man. I don't know who's on what anymore. None of us do. It would seem to me to be incredibly unlikely. But I will say this. We now know, and again, I don't know if he's on anything or not, but we do now know ways to preserve certain motions and athleticisms, if you will, for lack of a better term, certain aspects of athletics much greater and for much longer periods of time than ever before. I was reading an article early this morning, Tom. This brisk weather had me up and at 'em, ready to go, and I was drinking my coffee and reading my stories, and I came across this article about body mass, lean muscle mass into your 50s. And maybe you got me thinking, maybe my brain is in that direction because you asked me about coming to a crossroads, whatever it might be. But it was talk of how you could efficiently stave off some of the devastating effects of a loss of strength, which is naturally occurring for all of us past a certain age. Basically, once you get past 20 as a man, to 80, from the age of 20 to 80, you may lose 30 to 40% of your muscle mass and your strength.
A quick question. Was this an advertisement, an advertisement that was at the bottom of an article you read?
No.
Or is this okay? All right, just check.
No. Were you worried that they heard us talking? That the internet heard us talking yesterday?
Yeah, like oh, take a look at this this selfie. Wow, next to that one, that kind of.
No, not at all. It was an article by a doctor talking about ways to stave off certain things, and he was saying, look, man, it's inevitable at some point. I mean, you are, if you're 80 years old, not going to be as strong as you were at 25, but there are things you can do to keep it from decreasing by 40%. Maybe it only has to be a 20% decrease if you're vigilant and hyper vigilant with certain things that you have to do all the time in terms of lean muscle mass and working out and sustaining strength and certain exercises that you can do, which is fascinating. But the reason it interested me is that at one point they referenced certain baseball players and football players, baseball in particular. It's harder to do in football because it's such a violent contact sport. At some point, 35, you get destroyed by a 20-year-old linebacker running a 4.5 40, and he's freaking, 5'11", 250, and he's running 4.5. You're in trouble. It's going to happen. Devin White, basically, that guy gets to you, and you're 38 years old. You're just not going to make it. But baseball and golf and other sports, that's different. And as long as you have the ability to sustain strength and fast twitch, you got a chance. So I was perked up this morning, feeling good about the possibility of kind of just supplementing my workouts a little bit.
I just wonder if there's going to be a future for some of these pitchers like Verlander or Scherzer or Wainwright pitched it. He was 41 this season in his last year.
Yeah, and he doesn't throw hard.
He doesn't, but a lot of these guys, their best month of the season looks just like they did when they were 27 years old, but then they go through these lulls, which is understandable given their age.
Sure.
Was Roger Clemens just way ahead of his time in that regard of playing a half a season? And I wonder if teams will allow for a player like a Verlander or a Max or whoever. Let's say they want to pitch to their 43 or 44. I mean, Verlander maybe, if he joined the team in August, 4 years from now, could gut it out for 3 months and be able to do what is necessary. Maybe not 96 when he has to rear back and go get it, but maybe 94 as a good pitcher. I just wonder because Roger Clemens, in a weird way, in all those eras with Rogers and George's box, and then he was at Houston doing the exact same thing where he's playing these shortened campaigns.
Yeah.
Why is that not the idea? I mean, shoot, in the NFL as well, Gronkowski kind of wanted to do that a couple of years ago. They made him come back and play. He was late after camp. This is the 2020 Super Bowl season. By the second month of the year, he looked like himself. But who's to say that in some of these sports that you might not save some money up for a guy to play a half a season, because that's the most important part of the year anyway, to go along with the postseason. I think for pitchers, it really is maybe an attractive option down the line.
I'm curious, by the way, as an aside, and I think these are all fun talking points. You're right. It probably will happen. We specialize everything these days. Why not time as well? But I would say to you that you brought up football at the end with Gronk, how much the Bucs need him back, but it doesn't look like he's going to come back. He just signed with Fox and all that. But I would tell you, I think the most interesting aspect of the remaining 11 regular season games in Tampa is whether or not Tom Brady plays in them and how many of them. That guy does not want to be there. Every time you see him now, you see he's miserable and he looks terrible. He looks even more gaunt than he did before. He doesn't look healthy. This is a man who has spent his entire life being healthy and prepared. Those two things, healthy and prepared at all times, annoyingly so, obnoxiously so at times as he pushed TB12. And now he looks unhealthy and miserable and not prepared. I don't know that he's going to make it through the year. That seems obnoxious of me to say, perhaps, but I don't know, man. It's not looking good.
No, especially because he's taking big hits as well. So if he had the offensive line from 2 seasons ago with Ryan Jensen, Ali Marpet, and Alex Kappa was a weak link, but he wasn't terrible with Tristan Wirfs next to him. If he, I saw he took a league low entering last week. I think it was 7 sacks was the league low, which feels high in general. But he's taken a lot of big hits. So it's a little bit different this year. And if you're going to get hit and you're not in a mental place where you want to be
Right.
participating, to begin with. It just feels like it's an implosion, but we'll see. I mean, that dude could rear back and find a different level of a-hole that we've never seen before. I bet that's in him too.
I think that's probably in him. And maybe it's being seen in his private life right now, behind the scenes. I know that this incessant yelling at the offensive line has caught everybody's attention, including other offensive linemen around the league going, no, man, ain't going to be too many more of those. I'm reminded of Red Fox and there ain't going to be too many more MFers when they were at the gambling table when somebody questioned his eyesight. I'm like, you only get a couple of those, maybe a season. He's already used them up. I don't think we're going to have too many more of those. Good work out of you, sir. Good work, Matthew. And thanks to all of you, and our thanks as well as we talk to Link Jarrett. We appreciate that as well. Be good, everybody, and we will talk to you on Monday. We are taking tomorrow off. We're going to utilize the bye week to spend some time with our friends and family, and I will talk to you guys on Monday. Take care.